The theme for this year's annual conference was All In, Called, Committed, Connected.
Hi, I'm April, the student ministry director here, and I went to annual conference this year for the first time. The reason I wanted to go is I wanted to network with other youth leaders and find resources to bring back.
After a long drive, we got there Wednesday evening and went to the Family Fun Festival. At the
At the community festival, there were lots of food trucks and games. We played pickleball and I won. Afterwards, I had to go to a rehearsal for the worship that would be happening the next morning. I was going to be carrying the banner.
So, Emerging Leaders is like a conference youth group. We try to meet around 2 to 3 times a year. Sometimes that's one of those is always at annual conference. Sometimes the others are on Zoom or at some sort of like retreat for a day or two. And so, even though Zeke and Camilla aren't officially part of Emerging Leaders, they came along with me. So, I introduced them to Emerging Leaders, and they kind of hung around with our group the whole week and ended up helping with worship like Zeke did. And they were on stage for our presentation from Emerging Leaders on Friday. First thing on Thursday morning, we went to the Cosro breakfast.
Well, I learned about Cosro, and that is a group to help women clergy in the church, and I think that's absolutely wonderful because you have to find community in small spaces.
And also during this annual conference, Cosro was advocating to pass Constitutional Amendment 2, which was to add 2 words, gender and ability, into the Book of Discipline so that churches couldn't discriminate against women and disabled people by denying them membership. Also, during the Cosro presentation, our very own Crystal Jacobson got a shout out because she was a former chair of Indiana Cosro and got it in great shape before handing it over to Julia. After a strong start to our day with the Cosro breakfast, we went into opening worship. During opening worship, there was a large choir helping lead music, which Camilla was very excited about because she's in choir at school. She loves singing. And there was also a great message from Bishop Tracy Malone.
The bishop's message was very moving. She speaks very passionately about being together as a church, and it even brought some people to tears.
So I really enjoyed the worship services. I've heard Bishop Malone preach one other time at Cosro Women's Retreat, and I really loved hearing her. I mean, she is just, God is working through her, I tell you. So worship was just beautiful, morning worship. And then one thing I didn't think we were going to do, and I don't know why, but was communion. Communion surprised me. And the beautiful thing about that was when you walked up to receive your bread and juice, they intentionally called you by name. So when you come up, they would look at your name tag and say April, and then, give you your bread or your juice. And that was really nice to have that personal touch, especially with it being in such a big setting.
After opening worship, we went into our first plenary session.
Plenary session is where all of the business things of conference happen. So we vote on amendments and movements and resolutions.
Both. And we also heard reports from all the different programs and committees across the conference. Some of these were like camp. A really exciting one was the financial report, and there was also reports from Children Matter Most, Justice and Inclusion.
What surprised me the most was the business part of it, the voting and being able to listen to the resolutions that people brought up, the changes that they wanted. I felt that the whole process was done respectfully. I really felt God during that process.
I sat beside a gal who this was her first time. She was the only one from her church who was there. And it was a great person to sit beside because every time we needed to vote and my phone wasn't coming up like it was supposed to, she would help me get it set up right. So she was the best techie person to have sitting beside me.
Each church gets to send their clergy and a lay person, so that there's around an equal number of clergy and lay people. But because there's retired pastors that go to annual conference, equalization members are there to rebalance the amount of clergy and laity.
One of the things that I enjoyed about annual conference this year was that I was going as an equalizing member, which means I get to vote on the things.
So after our first plenary session, on Thursday, we went back to the house for some lunch and got to see your mom for a little bit.
And then we went back to business with plenary session 2 right afterwards.
This annual conference, there were 4 constitutional amendments that we had to vote on.
The first one that we voted on was about regionalization. And so instead of the US being central, we would become our own region, and we would have our own book of discipline that we vote on, and other countries in the world don't. And so it only affects us and not those other countries.
And that would be true for other countries too.
The second constitutional amendment that we voted on was about stopping discrimination in membership by race and ability. Not race, by gender and ability. So that means that churches can't deny people from becoming members if they're disabled or women.
The third constitutional amendment was about changing vague language to be more specific in the area in the Book of Discipline where the United Methodist Church owns up to its racism in the past and vows to be anti-racist in the present and in the future. Some of those specific words that it added were like colonialism and white supremacy.
The fourth constitutional amendment replaced words like MDiv with Master of Divinity for more consistency and clarity within the Book of Discipline. And it also had a little section about local pastors voting, because right now local pastors are not able to vote on constitutional amendments, even though equalization members like us are.
Miller, what's something interesting that has happened so far?
Well, someone was talking to the bishop at one of the mics, and he must have said something the bishop didn't like. I wasn't really paying attention. And the bishop said, "Well, let me just be clear. I am not one to be pushed around." And everyone started to erupt in like woohoo and claps. And so that was very empowering.
We joined the emerging leaders after plenary session 2 for dinner, and we had pizza in our little emerging leaders room, and we were also joined by some students from Purdue.
There's this one pastor who also works at Purdue, and his name is Glenn, and he's really tall, and he's just a fun, silly guy.
And then it was also fun, like, getting to know new people from Purdue, and I have one friend that's a pastor's kid who I've been friends with for a very long time, and we see each other at annual conference every year.
And I was baptized with her.
and she just joined Emerging Leaders in this past year. So I got to see her there and hang out with her during annual conference, and that was cool. Thursday night after dinner, we went to the Celebration of Life worship service. And this is to remember all the people that have passed. And I helped lead that service by reading some scripture and serving as the lectern. Your word is more desirable than honey, sweet honey from the comb. Send your spirit among us, that in the words of the scriptures we might hear and heed your word to us tonight. Through Christ we pray. Amen. After worship that night, we had a little impromptu hangout at our Airbnb.
So this year at annual conference, April and Layden came and stayed with us. So we rented an Airbnb, and then the Airbnb had a little fire pit in the backyard. So I was able to introduce Layden to Emerging Leaders, and I met a few of them myself. And I invited everybody over for a little campfire, and it was fun. We hung out.
At the hangouts, there were s'mores, and we played Uno. And halfway through playing Uno, there was a guitar that appeared out of nowhere. So they stopped playing Uno to start playing songs on the guitar, and there was a little sing-along.
And it was fun. And Layden got to meet Emerging Leaders, and maybe he'll be a future Emerging Leader. That's what church is all about, is connecting with others and empowering each other to do ministry.
The next morning started off with morning worship, and then at 10 we started plenary session 3.
So I brought Layden down with me because I wanted him to see how the church runs at conference level and see all the people that were there and just experience it. And I was a little worried that he would be bored, especially during the plenaries when we were talking business. But Nick came along, and he was a guest, so he wasn't an equalizing member, just like Layden. So they didn't have to be in there. So them two just hung out together the whole time, and it was just a blessing for me as a mom because I did not have to worry about him one bit. Him and Nick are used to each other here at the church, so they had a good time, and I was able to just relax and be able to listen and vote appropriately. So yeah, that was great to have Nick there to help Layden out.
And I was happy to introduce Layden to Emerging Leaders and the leadership staff and help April get to know them. And hopefully those connections will last a lifetime.
Carolyn Marshall has been the executive director of the Lucille Raines Residence, which United Women in Faith have owned for quite a few years. She's been there 37 years, and she decided to retire. So during annual conference, we had a mission lunch and honored Carolyn. Her family was there, and a number of people, more than even the room could hold, wanted to celebrate with her and comment about how much that she has meant to the residents, people who have decided to do away with drugs and live a life full. And so she has been their mentor, practically their mother, and they call her Miss Carolyn and love her dearly.
On Friday for lunch, we took Camilla, our friend Emerson, and April and Layden and introduced them to Sushi Boss, which is one of our favorite places to go in Indy.
The very first time that I got the broken arm, so when we went to appointments for my broken arm, we would get Sushi Boss. That's his origin story. That's how it all started.
Yep, and it became one of our favorites down there, and we've been going since. And we got to introduce our friends to it, which was pretty fun.
And it was good. It was fun.
On Friday during the plenary session in the afternoon, both Children Matter Most and Emerging Leaders gave their reports. So during the Children Matter Most report, they shared a little bit about our church, Lagrange UMC, and our mental health series that we did recently. And our youth leader and our pastor got a little shout out. And then a little bit later, also on Friday, emerging leaders shared our report, and the theme was unity. So we made a video about unity in which we recorded people from our churches and our friends and our family saying what unity meant to them. And I helped lead our presentation by closing us out with a prayer for unity.
While the emerging leaders were giving their presentation, me and Camilla got to sit on the stage alongside them.
The hallways were full of booths with different resources. One was called, I think it was called Conversation in a Cup.
It's a really neat resource. It's just pocket size, and it's 5 conversations that you can have with people encouraging their discipleship journey.
And then there was also another resource that I thought was really interesting because of our lighthouse mission. They were collecting data in the courtroom for evictions. It's something so simple as just going into a courtroom and collecting data and just being a support system for the evictees, and then showing the court system, the judges and the prosecutors, that, you know, these people do have a support system. These people are children of God and they need help. And they said just being a present in the courtroom, just being a presence, has helped the judges have a little more compassion. There was also a coaching resource that coaches laity and clergy and youth, like leaders, like a youth leader. And I'm going to check into that too. Not to only utilize the coaching and have some support, but they were also saying they're looking for coaches. So I'm going to check into that resource too. One of my favorite things I got down there was the resource book. And this book lists all the classes that conference offers, all the like resources that you can use. And last year, Pastor Crystal gave me this book after she came back from conference. And I think I pretty much hoarded it all year because I had everything bookmarked that I wanted to do. And of course, and one of those things was going to the Children's Matter Most Mental Health Summit. So yeah, I've already marked a few things that I want to do. And yeah, I'm excited for the next year of all the resources I can take advantage of at the conference level.
In the welcome packets, they gave you a little trifold pamphlet called a passport, and this passport had essentially a bingo card in it, and so you had to walk around all the tables that were in the bingo card and get a stamp in that spot. And once you had your passport filled out, so you had to fill out 30 spaces or something to get around to all the tables. And once that was completed, you turned it into the communications office where they made camp, and you exchanged your full passport for a little bag here. And it's just a little simple toiletry bag to take with you. But Layden had a great time with this, and it's a neat little thing to help people get engaged to what was going on around in the conference. And so by the end, Layden had filled out 2 or 3 cards and had these things completely stuffed with pens and pencils and candy and little bag clips and whatever else, odds and ends.
For dinner, we actually had tickets to the Indian Against Racism dinner. The guest speakers were Mr. Zaire Allen Gladden Williams and the Reverend Dr. Shonda Nicole Gladden. And they had a really good message. Their theme was almost there. So they got out a ukulele and they actually started with a little bit of the song Almost There from The Princess and the Frog, which was fun. And then talked about how we're almost there fighting against racism, and we got to keep up the good fight.
I actually saw ASL interpreters, and I take ASL in school. So I was like, hey, we should go talk to them. And it was really cool talking to them.
After dinner, we went to the celebration of commissioning, ordination, and retirement. So it was pretty cool, and we made sure to go for Camilla so that she can see what her future might look like. And while we were there, they had an altar call, and they had a special line for those who felt called to ministry. So Camilla went up to that line, and I went with her as support. And she got a blessing from the bishop, and we prayed over her for her future in ministry.
And while we were there, I sat with the emerging leaders and bonded with them more.
Also, I met a bunch of new friends in the emerging leaders group, and I think that I'll have a bunch of lifetime friends.
And I think somebody stole the phone and took a bunch of selfies. On Saturday, we opened with plenary session 5. In this session, the Dream and Do Award was presented to all the groups that received it.
The Dream and Do Scholarship helped pay for our mission trip last year. So me, Lydia, and Camilla went up to receive the award and shake hands with the bishop.
Saturday, after the plenary session, annual conference ended with worship.
For that worship service, I was asked last minute to help hold a project for the bishop where all of the local churches made little granny squares or like knit squares. And then at the end of the worship, me and 2 other emerging leaders went up on stage and held it up.
I'll have to say I really enjoyed annual conference.
Yeah, so that was our week at annual conference, and it was really great, and we can't wait to go next year, right?
Yeah.
Yay!